Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about Newton's first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion. So as we all know, Newton derived all the three laws of motion according to our daily life. Okay, so before going to know about the topic of first law of motion, we need to know what is there inside the Newton's first law of motion. Okay, suppose you are keeping a book on your table. It will be at rest until if you apply some force on the book with your help of your hand. That means the body will be at rest unless some force will acts on it, right? Next, and if you took a ball and you are just throwing it on the floor, what will happen? The ball will roll on the ground and it will move from some forward distance, right? We all know some force will oppose the motion of a body in the motion on the ground. Whenever a body is rolling on the ground or when you are walking on the ground, what will happen? Some opposite force will act in opposite to your direction. That means if you are moving like this, if your motion is towards this direction, and what about the external force? The external force from ground will act on the opposite direction of the motion. That opposite force in the opposite direction of motion is known as frictional force. So the motion of a body on ground will be opposed by a force that is called frictional force. If suppose you are throwing a ball on a tiles or a smooth floor, what will happen? The ball will go some forward distance more than on the rough floor, like sand. If you throw the ball on sand and the same ball is thrown on a floor of tiles, what will happen? The ball will go very forward than the ball on the sandy floor, right? So the friction will be more on rough surface and the friction will be less on smooth surface. So the friction will be more on rough surface. Friction will be less on smooth surface. What are the rough and smooth surfaces? If the surface will be like this, curvy, then we call that surface as a rough surface. If the surface is smooth, then we will call, the best example for smooth surface is the tiles. So the floor covered with the tiles is an example of smooth surface. And what about rough surface? Rough surface is nothing but a floor of sand or a floor of soils, right? So what is happening here? Whenever a ball is moving on the floor, some frictional force is opposing the motion of the ball on the ground. If the opposing force is not there, if suppose the external force which is acting on the body is not there, so I am deleting this external force from the ground, what will happen? The motion will start continuous. That means the ball will continuously flows on the body. So again I am repeating what is there. So if you keep a book on the table, the book will be at rest unless if you act some force, if you apply some force with the help of your hand, right? So suppose take this pencil, right? I'm just keeping this pencil in my hand. What it is at rest, right? And it will be at rest unless if I am not applying force on the pencil. If I am applying force on the pencil, then the